Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let everyone in.
Sounds good.
All right, welcome everyone. We're just having our last few folks join us here, and then we'll get started.
Welcome everyone.
All right. All right, so we're going to keep admitting folks, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome, good evening. My name is Laura Villamot. I am the head of outreach and community experience at the Framingham Public Library. Tonight's event is ice fishing with Jim Lagacy from, he's the Angler Education Program Coordinator for the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. And we are thrilled to be partnering with the Ashland Public Library for this program. We're also thrilled that you are able to join us tonight just in time for it to be properly cold and properly feel like it's time to go ice fishing. Before we get started, I do have a few announcements. At the end of the lecture, we will have time for question and answer period. You can go ahead and enter your questions into the chat at any time, and either Mina from Ashland will read them out, or Jim, or I will read them out to Jim if it's something that we want him to answer right away, or you can hold them until the end and we'll have time for that question and answer period. Please make sure that when you enter your questions in the chat, you select send to everyone, just in case we have multiple people have the same question. As I'm sure you probably saw, tonight's event is being recorded for future viewing on the Framingham Public Library YouTube channel. Our videos are usually posted within the next couple days, so if there's anyone who wasn't able to make it for tonight, point them in the direction of our YouTube channel. We would love to have them watch it after the fact. I'll also be adding an evaluation form in our chat box. Please feel free to click the link and share your thoughts with us at the end of the session. Please make sure that you do wait until the session is completely ended though, because it will redirect you to a new page. We'd love to hear what you thought. We'd love to see if you have any ideas for any future programs, and if you'd like to join our mailing list. Of course, we'll never send anything other than library events to you. But again, do wait until the very end for that. And with that, we are very pleased to welcome Jim. Welcome.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks to the Framingham Public Libraries and Mina with the Ashland Public Library. We can't do these programs without partners, so I really appreciate partnering with both of you. And thanks for the great intro. So this is ice fishing for beginners with Mass Wildlife. My name is Jim Lagacy, as Laura said. I'm the Angler Education Coordinator for Mass Wildlife. And short of actually going out on the ice and having someone show you how, we hope that this gives you the confidence to give this a shot on your own. We'll have a nice hour-long walkthrough here, everything from soup to nuts on beginner ice fishing, what you need to know to be safe on the ice in particular for any pastime, but particularly for ice fishing. And then we'll just go through everything that you need to know to get started. Like I say, we hope that this gives you the confidence to get out and give it a shot. Ice fishing is one of the smaller niches within fishing, and it's something a lot of people get curious about now that we're in the freeze up and they see other people out on the water fishing on the hard water. So this should be an excellent walkthrough for you. So let's jump in. If my screen will move here. There we go. What we'll cover. So why would anyone want to ice fish? That's the $64,000 question. Why would you want to be out freezing on the hard water, walking on water? Learning to be comfortable on the ice, some safety items you should absolutely have, and then learning how to test the ice. We'll have some videos that show you how to do that. Dressing for warmth and comfort. We're not going to have a long soliloquy about how to dress you up, but some common sense tips will keep you comfortable out in those cold conditions. Ice fishing regulations, like all fishing pastimes, there's some regulations involved, rules to govern the way we have to behave out there. So ice fishing is no different. We'll go through a few of those. Essential ice fishing gear. We'll go through that. Tip-ups and jig sticks, which are 2 ways to ice fish. We'll really get in depth with that. And then some further tips for success. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So why would anyone want to ice fish, you ask, or you may ask? Well, first and foremost, why would anyone do anything except work, unless it isn't fun, right? So you got to go out and have fun, and winter's no different. And ice fishing is fun. It's just, especially if you pick the right day, the right group of people, friends, relatives, it can be an absolute blast being out on the ice as these smiling people are all alluding to right here, because you never know what you're going to catch when you ice fish. It's a lot different. You can catch all the same fish that you would during open water times, but it's different in the technique that you use. You can't physically target fish similar to open water fishing. So when that flag pops up, when that rod bends, you're doing it through a medium that's a blank canvas. You can't see what you're going to catch. So it's kind of cool in that regard, especially if you haven't fished before. You haven't ice fished before, you haven't been out and experienced that. When that flag goes up, it's like, wow, there's a fish biting. Let's go see what it is. And you can catch all the same fish that you can catch during open water times, all available under the ice. So that's one of the best things. And because it's what's for dinner, a lot of people, their motivation to fish is to eat fish. And that's a whole topic we could spend a long time on, but that's a lot of the motivation for some people, whether it's some of my favorites right here, yellow perch, trout are really delicious, especially through the ice. Some people like to eat bass. Fish can be part of a healthy diet. So that's one of the best things and best reasons for getting out and getting on the ice, because it's awesome exercise. There's new science in recent years that show that you should stress your body, not in a bad way, but stress it through exercise. And some where you kind of lose your breath and you're out there, whether it's outside or whether you're in a gym being vigorous, at least a couple, 3 days a week. So ice fishing can easily provide that. You're going to be lugging all this gear out. You're going to be drilling holes through the ice like this young lady's doing. You're definitely going to be going through some stress out in the sun, getting that vitamin D that is so essential to everything we do. So that's another great reason. And you can see us walking out carrying all our gear right there, because it's great for families and kids. That's one of the most important things. Ice fishing is, of all the fishing niches, is the one that's the most social. You'll see larger groups out there. I love it when you can combine eating, fishing, playing certain sports. I love to skate and play pond hockey. So sometimes we do that while we're ice fishing, or we'll make a whole day of it and bring our food out and have a fire on the ice. It's just a wonderful activity to do as a family and group of friends. And the young folks just eat that stuff up. I mean, they love when the flags go up. They love catching fish through the ice. It's just a whole new world to them. So wonderful activity for families. And lastly, it's because it's a tailgate party on the ice. I alluded to that. Bringing your food out and making a whole day of it. And that's one of my favorite things to do. Get a group of friends or family out there and just cook your meals on the ice and just have a good old time trying to catch fish, catching some rays and getting some exercise. So the most important thing, and I can't stress this enough, is learning to be comfortable while you're out on the ice. Don't be that dog. Get geared up and get comfortable out on the ice, like this young lady on the left is. This cutie is very comfortable, and actually she's a coworker's daughter and absolutely loves to go ice fishing. It's one of her favorite winter activities. So learning to be comfortable only takes a few common sense things. And you got to start by being safe. That's the most important thing. We hear a lot about being safe nowadays. It's a word, it's almost overused some. I get that, but you can't stress it enough when you're ice fishing. You're actually standing on water that's frozen. That's only from a few inches to a couple of feet. So you want to definitely know what you're doing out there and start by being safe, and that'll give you that confidence. So we always recommend for everyone that's starting is to bring a life jacket and wear it. It just gives you that peace of mind that if the worst ever did happen, which it won't if you take a few precautions I'm going to show you in a moment, but it gives you that mental confidence that, oh geez, if I go through, I'm at least going to float and I can pull my way out. A length of rope is really good if you're fishing with more than one person. If you're fishing in a group, so if someone did go through, they'd throw you that length of rope, or you'd throw it to them if you were carrying it, and they'd pull you right out. Safety spikes around your neck they're essential, they're inexpensive, and they'll help you if you did go in. You just claw your way right back out. You grab hold of the ice with those spikes and pull yourself right up back onto the ice. And a big important tip is, if you ever did go in, the way you get out is the way you went in. You don't go the opposite way. You go where the ice was safest and you pull yourself out and head that way. Bring some means to test the ice, and I'll show you all of these shortly. Wear cleats on your feet if the ice is slick. So if it's skatable ice or just really glare ice, you want to wear If you don't skating is a wonderful way to engage it too. But if you don't wear some kind of these little walking cleats, you can get them very inexpensive, or you can, like everything, pay the moon for them. You can pay a lot of money for them, but they're very inexpensive, and you can just wrap them around your boots, and gives you that traction and give you a lot more comfort on the ice and confidence. And always pack a set of extra clothes, throw it in the car. If you ever did go in, even if you just dunked your leg in up to your knee, then you have those extra pair of socks you can dry out. Again, that is extremely rare. I'm in my mid 50s now, and I've been spending time on the ice for the last 40 years. And it's only happened to me once, and it was as a child, being foolish, playing pond hockey, over moving water, chased the puck, and went through up to my waist. It was an experience that has made me very vigilant to what safe ice is and what it isn't. And it's never happened or even come close to happening again. So once you learn what safe ice is and learn how to determine it, you'll feel completely confident out there. So how thick does the ice have to be safe, right? Let's get right down into it. So Mass Wildlife recommends, and this was done with physics many years ago by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. And this is based on clear blue or black ice, that really strong, you can look right down onto the ice, and that's the strongest ice there is. And 2 inches or less, just stay off of it. 3 inches, one person on foot. If it's a good solid 3 inches, it's safe. 4 inches, a group in single file, and then it goes up from there. So 5 inches, a small group together. And I would completely disregard, driving your vehicles on the ice, and we'll talk about why that isn't a good idea in a bit here. But generally in southern New England, especially eastern southern New England, the best that we can hope for is maybe 8 to 10 inches, inside of 495 on a good winter. Down the southeast toward the Cape, if that's where you hail from, I would say on a good winter, maybe 4 or 5 inches, and then it comes and goes so quick. If you get the Central Mass and the Berkshires, you can get upwards of 3 feet of ice on a good winter. And this is shaping up to be one of those winters. It was a very mild December. And then it really started to go the other way, and winter showed up in January. And so the places in Central Mass where I am and into the Berkshires are going to have a foot or more right now. So if you don't trust the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inch, standards, gain that confidence by going where we measure it in feet, where you can land planes on it, where you can drive on it, which I still don't ever recommend anyone doing. But then you get more of a sense of confidence that, okay, if it's a foot under me, then, I'm not worried at all about it. And you can find that ice, particularly up north, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, New York, and of course on into Canada. You're going to find it measured way in 3, 4, and 5 feet. Out in the Midwest as well, the Great Lakes, once they really freeze up and you get that deep cold for a month or more, you're going to get ice that measures 3, 4, 5 feet thick. So we just don't really have that now in southern New England, and especially with climate change and global warming, it's we're seeing that just these weather patterns aren't allowing for it as much. So come to Central Mass and Western Mass, and we still get decent amounts. Determining safe ice. So it's not going to be this easy, folks. You're not going to show up in a water body and see it posted, danger thin ice, or yay, you're good to go on the ice. So you have to be your own advocate for safety. So let's get right into it. Here is how you figure out if the ice is safe.
So Jim Lagacy again, Mass Wildlife Angler Education Coordinator. And the first and most important thing about ice fishing is being safe on the ice and being confident in your ability to be safe on the ice. The first couple of things you should have with you, especially if you're new and you've never ice fished before, is a PFD. This will give you all the confidence you need. If you did happen to go in, worst case, you'd be floating, which would give you the ability to stay on that surface and dig in and get yourself out. The other thing you should always wear, whether you're a brand new ice angler or a veteran, are these ice spikes. They're basically just little sharp objects that you can hold in your hand. You always wear them around your neck. There's a variety of different kinds, but basically just if you did fall in again, you can just pick your way back out and use your upper body strength to pull yourself out of the water. Very, very important safety item to wear. If you're fishing with a buddy or a group, as often we do when we ice fish, you should bring a length of rope. if someone does go through in your party, you can throw this to them, and the other folks can drag you out. Again, worst case. What I'm going to show you next, you generally don't have to worry about any of this. You should still have it with you, but being able to test the ice for strength and safety is your number one thing to be able to do. So we're gonna take these off while I test the ice. And the way to test the ice is a very simple procedure. There is no website to consult or number to call to tell you if this pond is safe, if that lake is safe or not safe. You have to do this yourself. You have to be your own advocate for safety. So the first thing you do, you come down to the water's edge. On the very edge, we're at the boat ramp here on South Pond, Lake Quacumquasit, Central Massachusetts, early February here. A good indication that the ice is safe, you'd pan around and you see other people on the ice. You see other groups here, other groups over there. Then you can say, okay, it must be, it must be safe. However, I never trust anyone else. I want to find out myself. Some people will push it. Mass Wildlife recommends 4 inches, minimum 4 inches of black or blue ice for safe ice. What generally happens in southern New England is you get the freeze thaw mixed in, you get precipitation mixed in, so you get more of that white, milky colored ice like we have here today. We have snow on top. So that ice is not going to be as strong. So we like to see at least 5 or 6 inches. So we got to test that. We got to walk down. We're going to pretend there's no one out on the ice today, even though there's a few groups. We're going to walk down right to the water's edge. We're right at the shoreline, the boat launch here. We're just going to kind of move the snow aside here, and we're in maybe a foot deep of water, and I'm going to jump up and down. Literally just jump up and down and feel if anything gives or cracks under my feet. I don't feel anything giving or cracking. I'll go a little further out, still maybe in 12 to 18 inches of water. Jump up and down. It's a little slushy on the surface. Nothing's giving. So that's a good sign. If you were to feel cracking under your feet or the ice actually moving, you'd probably call it a day and say it's not safe. Never push it beyond that. But this ice feels really solid now. I'm going to move out a little further because I'm going to use a good old hand auger, a 6-inch hand auger. You can do it with a chisel or a small hand auger to see how thick the ice is. We're going to go a little further out. This might be 1.5 to 2 feet. So if you were to go through, it would not be the end of the day. It would be maybe up to the top of your boots. So plant your feet, just start drilling. Take your skimmer, kick the slush aside. Some people like to leave that as it kind of insulates the hole on really cold days and keeps the ice from freezing. I like to just get it out of the way entirely. Take your skimmer, move all the slush out. Remember, we're right on the shore here. Good little common sense too is when you're drilling near the shore, don't drive this down into the bottom. Just as soon as you punch through, bring it right back up because you don't want to mess up those blades. And if you have a chisel to check it, all the better, because that won't matter if you punch it to the bottom. Okay, now we're going to turn the skimmer upside down. I'll take my glove off here. We're just going to put the hook right on the bottom of the water, bottom of the ice here. Put it down till you literally hook the bottom of the ice. I'm going to put my hand right on the surface of the water column. Now you're going to measure from the hook to my finger. That's a good 8 or 9 inches. So 8 or 9 inches, even though it's not honeycombed ice, it's just that white ice with a lot of freeze and thaw and precipitation mixed in. It's plenty strong enough. So there is your indication that you're probably going to be okay. Now you want to stake out your location on the water. You'd look over. You'd probably already know roughly where you're going to set up. Say you want to set up in that cove or off that point. You'll still want to check it a couple more times on the way out. You will never assume that it's going to be the same thickness that it is on the shore. Ice freezes first on the shore and last out toward the middle, and vice versa. And it thaws out in late winter and early spring from the shore, and it's thicker out in the middle. Use those few little safety precautions. You'll have no problem out on the ice this winter.
So that's really all there is to it, folks. Again, I can't stress enough that you need to do this yourself. You need to have some way to drill through. It would be convenient if you could just call a number. There is a website. It's a national group it's called iceshanty.com, and they have local groups in each state. So you can get an indication if people are out ice fishing, what water bodies, how much ice. But again, that's anecdotal at best, because one person's view of safety is not necessarily another's. So again, I would just have an implement to get through that ice, be able to test it yourself and see how thick it is. You don't have to have a skimmer. Say you're just an ice skater or a hiker, cross-country skier, you still have to be able to test the ice. You can even do it with a stick, just a stick with a fork in it, put that down, see how thick that ice is. And then if it's like 5 or 6 inches, like I say, you're rarely going to have the ice that looks like this blackish blue, deep blue. That's really early forming before any precipitation gets at it. You could have this on a rare winter in southern New England, but generally up north, you can have this. You get a deep freeze that lasts 10 days to 2 weeks without any precipitation. You can get this really thick, blackish, dark blue ice. And this is the strongest. But again, here we get the freeze thaw, and then we get precipitation thrown in. So it's still strong. It's just a milkier white looking ice. So just be aware of that. There is also these scary booming and cracking sounds you are going to hear. And it's completely normal. Ice will react to temperature and wind changes, causing expanding and or contracting. And it'll show you these, and it'll rear its ugly head as these surface cracks. And when it's cold, this means the ice is expanding, getting thicker. But with that expansion, you'll get these cracks, and these cracks don't open up big holes, and you're not going to fall through. They're just expansion cracks, and you can hear this, this popping and booming sound underneath you, and that can be alarming for some people. I truly get that, especially if you've never been out. But as long as you've tested the ice from shore and you get that 4 or 5 inches, and it's cold below 32 degrees cold, like it's been for quite a while now, you're perfectly fine. That's just that's the pond or lake making more ice, which is a beautiful thing. However, if you hear that ice cracking while you're walking and you can feel it giving, because weak ice will actually feel a little floaty, like you're actually floating on it. You'll want to back off, test it again, and you should be testing it, every 100 feet or so as you're walking out anyways. That ice is probably not going to be safe. You don't want to back off. So keep in mind, again, like I explained in the video, ice freezes first at the shore, and then slowly it moves out into the deeper open water. So it's completely plausible to have safe ice on the shore and then the small coves where you could ice fish, but not out in the deeper water. And that's in bigger lakes. Usually smaller ponds, particularly the ones you're going to see throughout Massachusetts, are going to, once you get a good freeze up, it's going to be safer near the shore, but they're going to freeze pretty quick right through the center within a week or so. And here's another tip. Don't be fooled by 3 or 4 days of below freezing weather, day and night. That's good stuff. That's what you need, but you need 7 to 10 days of that. A lot of people get into trouble, it's been cold for a couple of days, let's go out on the ice. And that's where things go sour. And that's when bad things happen. You'll want to give it some time, give it a week to 2. And we've had that now. And all the authorities, you're going to see it on the news all the time. They always stress this. And they err on the side of being ultra cautious, even telling you when the ice is safe to stay off of it. Because they just don't want anyone to go in. They want everyone to be really safe. So just be able to test it yourself, get some means to test it. And it's silly, but you just jump up and down from shore. If it feels strong, go a little ways further, drill or chisel a hole, measure that. And then if it's 4, 5, 6 inches and on, we don't do in-person programs unless we have 6 inches, because we want you to be confident that there is safe ice. If it's under that, we generally will postpone the program or cancel it altogether. So just be aware of that, folks. A few other concerns: stay away from that early forming ice. I just spoke about that. After 3 or 4 days, it's not going to be ready. Stay off river and stream ice in southern New England. Now I'm talking about, real moving water, whether it's a stream or a river. There are parts of rivers that oxbow. There's the Connecticut River and Merrimack. They have areas that oxbow, and oxbow is just a section of the river that geologically has been cut off in time, mostly cut off. It's a huge bend, and then eventually the main branch of the river just cuts that bend off. There's still a gentle flow through it, but it's almost like a pond next to the river. those areas where the gentle flow can be really thick and be great for fishing, and a lot of the river fish, swim back and forth in those areas. So there's areas of the Merrimack River, the Concord River, the Connecticut River, the Housatonic River out in the west that have those lazy, slow oxbow sections. So those are fine, but I'm talking about the main channels of rivers and streams. Here in southern New England, I wouldn't trust them. I'd stay off them. And that's generally when you hear about a pet going through and a person trying to rescue him, invariably it's a moving water. So watch out for the late season ice and or after like a long thaw, like a week of really warm 40s and 50-degree weather and warm above freezing at night. It'll still look like that white ice, but it'll look like a slushy. It'll be, you can reach your hand down and touch it, and it's like one of those snow cones, slushies. And that's really weak ice, and that's when it's starting to go out. And you can even get thaws in the middle of the winter when you get a week of really warm weather, and the ice will go out, and then in February it'll reform and start again. So just be aware, just be really aware of what's going on around you. In late season, that's going to happen. You get late February, March, and it's going to start to go and get that really slushy appearance, and I'd stay off that ice. Make sure you test the ice more than once. We talked about that. Don't just test it once and shoot across the pond thinking it's going to be safe. Beware of short edges. Edges, particularly on the north end of the pond. I know that sounds weird. North usually means cold, but the north end of the pond is going to be the weakest because of the sun angle in the winter. The sun angle is going to really hit that northern end of the pond, especially if there's no precipitation in the form of snow, and then the background's dark on the shoreline. It's attracting that sun from that low sun angle and warming up that edge of the pond. So generally the south end of the pond and the west side of the pond are going to be the safest because they get less sun in the winter, and the east and the north get that sun angle, particularly the north side. So just be aware of that getting on and off. It's best to find a nice area on the south side of the pond to walk onto. And then avoid like docks, big rock piles, again, because they absorb the sun's energy and they weaken the ice around it. So it may just be a matter of you walk out onto the dock and just take a long step. Don't step right near the dock where it could be weak. So again, just common sense, folks. I know sometimes there doesn't seem to be a lot of common sense left out there. Just watch the news at night sometimes. But again, just 4 or 5 inches, be able to test it yourself and test it multiple times, and you'll be fine. You will never have an occasion where you'll need the life jacket or the rope or the other safety precautions like the spikes, but always have those with you just in case the worst were to happen. All right, so we're not going to get into dressing you up too much. I just want you to know that there's an old saying that there is no bad weather, just bad clothing. I kind of subscribe to that for the most part. I have my limits. Everyone's got their limits. Some people can handle the cold a little longer than others. But me, myself, I'll fish on a day like today, no problem. Even a day like yesterday where it's in the teens, as long as you layer up, and that's not a big deal. Wind is really the limiting factor, and that really cuts things apart and cuts your ability to stay out on the ice. So here's the right clothing. Just the basics you need to know is to wear that moisture wicking layer against your skin, and then wear a wind resistant layer on the outside of all the rest of your layers. It'll block the wind. If you're going to be moving, you're going to be setting up your gear, you're going to be all in your gear. So you want a layer against the skin that's not cotton, that's not going to absorb moisture. That's critical. So what you put between that moisture wicking layer and that outer layer that'll block the wind, if it's a windy day. If it's not a windy day, that's a moot point. But what you put between those two layers is up to you. You can fleece, you can wool, you can cotton it, and you can put 2, 3, 4 layers and take them off and add them as needed, but just layer up. Protect your extremities. We all know this. Wear the hat like this young man's wearing, or the balaclava, which I love because it goes down over your neck and protects your face. Good pair of gloves, boots. Don't have to break the bank with any of this. There's plenty of available inexpensive outer gear that you can wear. The cleats we already talked about, some way to move about on the ice if the ice is really slick. And then eye protection, particularly those with lighter colored eyes, green or blue eyes, are going to be really impacted by the reflection of the sun's light, even on cloudy days, off the snow surface or the white colored ice. So that can actually damage your eyes. So wear polarized sunglasses to protect your eyes. and it'll give you great comfort in the winter. So just simple tips. We've all heard them before, right? So now we got a few ice fishing regulations. Like I said in my intro, all fishing pastimes have some regulations, whether you're fly fishing, saltwater fishing, boat fishing, canoe, kayak fishing. You got some rules and regulations. The first and foremost one in Massachusetts, anyone 15 years in age and older needs a fishing license. It is free until you're 18. You need to have it, but it's free. And once you're 18, you'll join the license buying ranks in earnest. And then when you're 70 and above, it's free again. You still have to possess it. Some people ask, well, why do I need to possess it if it's free? Well, we need to know who's out there, who is our demographic. So we need to see that you're out there. So in some states, it's 12 years old. Some states it's 16. So if you're doing this in other states, just beware. There's different regulations per state. In Massachusetts, it's 15 years old and older, you need a license. And you can get that right on our website. One of the first big buttons right on Mass Wildlife. You'll be able to purchase it, and it walks you right through how to get it. All anglers, and this is unique to Massachusetts, not all states have this, are allowed 5 lines in the water. We define it as a hook in the water, but it's really, think of it more as a line in the water when you're ice fishing. So when you're open water fishing, you can use 2 rod and reels, so 2 lines in the water, and each one is designed to catch 1 fish at a time, whether you're using a big old lure with a treble hook or you're using one lure with a worm on it. You're allowed 2 during open water times. During ice fishing times, you're allowed 5. So we're going to show you the gear that allows you to put that line in the water in a moment here. But we define it, it's defined as a hook, but that's kind of a little curious and kind of hard to wrap your head around. So think of it like a line in the water with a lure on the end or a hook with bait on it that's designed to catch 1 fish at a time. So you're allowed 5 of those implements through the ice per person in the winter, whether it's 4 tip-ups and you get 4 tip-ups in, they're like traps, they're doing the fishing for you, and then you're jigging with a little mini fishing pole that we'll show you in a minute here, or just 5 tip-ups. You're allowed just the 5. And all anglers must be able to tend their own gear. So you can't bring your 4-year-old out and say, well, now I can bring my 5 lines in the water and I can put their 5 lines in the water and I'll just go ahead and, put all the bait on and catch all the fish, and they can just kind of run around the ice and play. They have to be able to physically manage, and we call it manning, their own hooks, their own lines in the water. So just be aware that you can certainly help them, but they can't be, complete newbies. They can't handle that. They have to be able to manage it themselves. And that goes for even an adult that's new to it. If they're not confident being able to do this themselves, then fall back to the person that's showing you how to do it and go with just their 5 lines in the water until you're able to physically do it yourself. You would be breaking the law if you let someone else just do it. Oh, they can put another 5 in because I'm with them and I'll just let them go ahead and manage it. No, that's not how you do it. You have to be able to, hook, play, and land the fish yourself, put the bait on yourself, all that good stuff. And one last thing, you need to be actually out on the ice tending these, because these are set in a way that you can set them and just kind of walk away, chill out, go play football on the ice or go eat or whatever, and just occasionally check to see if the fly is going off. But you can't, we'll go into a cabin and go keep warm and just keep occasionally look out the window. I'm sure a lot of people do, but technically that's against the law. You have to be physically out on the water, watching your gear to see if the flag pops up. So just be aware of those simple rules. Other than that, the rest of the rules, like how many fish you can keep, whether you can keep these fish or not, if there's a minimum size, they're all the same as during open water times. Those don't change for ice fishing. So let's get into the fun stuff, the gear that you need, the actual essential ice fishing gear. Well, we talked about a means to test the ice thickness. You have to have that to get through the ice to test how thick it is, but that also allows you to fish. So on your screen from left to right, you're going to see 4 implements that allow you to get through the ice. And I've lined them up from my least favorite on the left side here to my most favorite on the right side. And we'll get into it. So the chisel is the cheapest, easiest way to do it. And I keep one around to test the ice, but I don't really fish with it because you're literally chiseling holes in the ice. So it can be a lot on your joints, your shoulders, your elbows, your upper body strength, particularly if the ice is more than 5 or 6 inches thick. If it's only 5 or 6 inches, and you have a good sharp chisel and you know how to use it, fine. That's a perfectly good way to do it. You get ice of a foot or more, it's a tremendous workout chiseling even the sharpest chisels through. So I like to use my chisel just to test the thickness of the ice, but I like to use these other implements. They're called augers to get through the ice. So my next least favorite would be this way to get through right here. It's super efficient, super powerful, but it's heavy. They weigh 30 to 35 pounds. They cost about $500, and these are power augers, gas operated power augers, mixed fuel. So you're mixing gasoline for the most part. Most of them are gasoline and oil. Some are propane. They do have some propane, and they probably even have some 4-stroke power augers now. But all of them are going to be synonymous with being loud, being heavy, being expensive. And there's no better way to rip holes in the ice. Having said that it's not one of my favorites, but if I'm running a fishing event on a weekend or a clinic in the evening and I need to rip 50 holes really fast, I'm using our program power auger because I can get there and in 10 minutes I can cut 50 holes. But if I'm ice fishing by myself on a quiet morning with some friends, or just by myself on a Saturday or Sunday morning at 6 or 7 o'clock, as us ice anglers often do, I don't want to start a loud. It's like starting a car, starting a snowmobile, starting any motorized thing right on the shore when everyone's just waking up. It can be very loud, very obnoxious. So not to mention heavy, not to mention finicky, because you usually have mixed fuels, and if you lay them down, sometimes they don't like to start right away. So for all those reasons, I tend to stay away from them. There are better options for families and individuals. This would be my next, you're getting close to my favorite right now. This is a good old hand auger. It's going to require a little upper body strength. And you'll see this young lady is going back and forth with it. You don't want to do that. This is one of those little video. The video is created that way on our website. So it's kind of cute, but you want to take it in one direction clockwise. You need sharp blades. These come from 4 inches in diameter all the way up to 12 inches in diameter. And as you can imagine, the wider diameter, the more ice you're trying to cut through and the harder it's going to be and the sharper these blades need to be. So I'd recommend, anywhere from a 4 to 6 inch hand auger. They're inexpensive. They weigh only a couple pounds. If you're mindful of keeping the blades sharp and not damaged, you cut through male, female, even children can cut through with them. They require a little upper body strength. I'd say probably you get to be about 9 or 10 years old before you can really have the upper body strength to cut through them. And you can set them for your height. There's a little set screw here, so you can drop it all the way to here and raise it way up. There's quite a bit more still in there if you're really tall. So they're very user friendly. Keep the blades sharp. You can cut through a foot of ice in 25 or 30 turns, and it's quiet and comfortable and easy. And you're working out. You're taking you're losing your breath a little bit, like I talked about, which is healthy. So
sorry to interrupt. We've got a question. What is common to use out there?
Would be the hand auger. Absolutely. The one this young lady's using right here. Absolutely would be the hand auger. That's it's only $50. They cut like a charm. The blades will last for years if you don't lay it down carelessly or slam it down. There's a cover they come with, so you cut your holes, put the cover back on, lay it down, and you're good to go. Very inexpensive and very efficient. Speaking of efficient, thank you, Laura, with that.
Jim, can I ask a question too?
Sure.
Rick asks, what are the common practices for using previously drilled holes? Is this considered unsportsmanlike?
Oh, great question. Wow, that's one we don't get very often. That is actually very sporting and very efficient. I would say I do it all the time. If I get to a water body, there's no one around, and a good indication of where there might be fish is where there was previous anglers fishing. So they left their holes, and there's maybe only, if it's a warmer day and they previously just left, those holes are wide open, go for it. There's nothing unethical about that at all. It would be unethical if they were still set up there and they drilled a bunch of holes and you kind of came close to them and just decided to set up. I've seen that happen. Very rude of some people. It's rare though. So I would just say that if they're gone, or it's the next day especially, and maybe only a skim coating or an inch, you can take that chisel or just take your auger and drill through. More power to you, and very efficient way to ice fish. Awesome way to do it. I've done it many times. So no, very ethical. Anything else,
Jim,
Laura? Yep.
Yeah. Zoe asked a little while ago that she was going to take going to have a 5 and her 9-year-old with one line and help her? Is that a no-go?
No, that's a go. I mean, that's fine. As long as she has a license, she's allowed up to 5 in the water. So she can include her kiddos, 1 or 2 or even 3. What I did when my children were young, I would just take my 5 and I have a son and a daughter, and we'd go out and I would just use the 5 until they could manage them themselves. And then we'd slowly add 1 or 2. And it's not hard. I'm going to show you how to do it in a moment here. It's really simple to set a tip up, but they have to see it and do it a few times. And once they do it, then you can add, a few. I wouldn't, you probably wouldn't want 5 for yourself, even if they're able to do it, then 5 for them and 5 for the sibling and 5 for the friend. It's a lot of work, a lot of holes you're cutting, and a lot that you're absolutely manning through the course of the day. But no, perfectly legal to have yours and to help someone else with theirs. So no, great questions.
Okay. And Mark asked, is there a specific name for people who ice fish?
No, ice anglers, ice fishermen, but I hate that term because the biggest demographic growing in all hunting and fishing is women. Women are really coming into it now. So we call them anglers. Anglers are people that fish. So ice anglers, I like to say, are hard water anglers because you're fishing on water that's hard, but that's pretty much what we call it. Great
Works
question.
for me.
Yeah.
I think that's it for now. Yep.
That's awesome. I love the questions. So getting to my favorite would be this right here. This is a conversion for a cordless drill, and they make all kinds of these now. So you have a decent 18-volt or better cordless drill. You have, as you can see, the bottom of a hand auger. So you just take this set screw out, and this handle comes off, and you would affix it to the bottom of this plate. And this plate is about $100 right here, and there's several companies that make them. And then you attach your drill here and the bottom of your hand auger here. So you're all in for around $200 to $225 rather than $400 to $500 with this. And you have a multi-use, multitaskable tool. So you have this for the rest of the year you can use for house projects. And during ice fishing season, you affix it to this plate with your hand auger. 12, 13 pounds, super quiet. As long as you have a good battery for them, and you'll need, if those that are familiar with some hand tools, you want at least a 4 amp hour battery. And an amp hour just means they hold the charge longer and they're able to do more. So the higher the amp hour, the better. 4 is perfectly adequate. And then I could cut 100 to 150 holes with a full charge in this. This is obviously, you don't want a big 10 or 12 inch because it's going to be hard to move and you're going to drain the battery down. But 4 to 6 inch hand auger with affixed to this, man, you can just have cuts like a charm. It's super quiet. It's lightweight. You're not breathing a lot of fumes. It's relatively inexpensive. So that's become my favorite way to get through the ice, is just this conversion. It's in the broader categories of electric augers, but it's the cheaper of the electric augers. You can get electric augers that cost $500 or $600 now, and they're dedicated. You can't take them apart. They're just like a power auger with the electric head on it. So I like these because you can use it for different tasks. And if you have thin ice, you just want to put this back on the handle and not use the power function, you can. If you have projects around the house where you need your drill, you can use it. So it's just a great way to multitask and to ice fish with it. So those are the ways to get through the ice.
Jim, we do have a few questions about technique. I don't know if you're going to get to that in just a minute. Someone wants to know the best depth, and someone else wants to know suggestions for bait and tackle. Is that something you're going to be able to cover?
Yeah, we'll get to the bait and tackle and the depth.
Great. We'll hold off on the questions.
Yeah, I can answer the depth really quick, and I'll explain it in the video coming up. Basically, you want to start at the bottom of the water column. Water is its most dense at 34 degrees, 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's weird. It's hard to wrap your head around, but it's actually the heaviest at that temperature. And when it's up near the surface, 32, obviously freezing, or 33 just under the surface, it's lighter. And all fish species are going to like the warmer water, no matter if they're trout or any type of panfish, bass. They're going to be more on the bottom where that water's warmer. So that's where you want to start. And then you work your way up through the column. And that's explained in the video coming up too here. So these are the 2 gear types for catching, these little mini fishing rods. And then this, what we call tip up or ice fishing trap type. There's a bunch of different local names for them. The broader name throughout North America is tip up, because the flag will tip up when the fish strikes. And we'll show you that in a moment here. So other necessary gear is the means to transport your gear. Very important, especially if you're all in for a day, whether you have a stove, whether you have a heavier auger, all your tip ups, your bait containers. You'll need a little sled. A lot of people make their own homemade rigs for that, but these little plastic ones are inexpensive and are great ways to carry all your gear and keep it organized. You'll need a bait and there's a couple different kinds here for carrying your bait that I'm going to show you in a moment that you need. You need an ice scoop, as I already showed you in the safety video, way to get the slush out of the way so you can drop your bait into the water. Then you'll need these sounding weights. The sounding weights allow you to find the depth at each hole, and I'll show you that too in a moment. And they're very critical. They're 2 ounces. They're little lead balls attached to a clip that you clip on the hook and test the depth of the water before you set the tip up. So very basic. We're going to walk through that. Comfort items. If it's a normal winter day, obviously hand, toe, and body warmers are critical. If you're just standing, especially if it's windy, it allows comfort. Hot and cold drinks, awesome. I don't go out without them. And a warming fire. Do not let anyone tell you that you can't have a fire on the ice. That's absolutely absurd and silly. It's the safest place to have a fire, out on a pond on the ice that's on top of the water. What could go wrong, right? Where it can go wrong is if you have it against the shore or literally on the shore. Dry conditions, no pack of snow, then you want to avoid that. But unless it's like a lake association private water body or some little town pond that they manage for skating and maybe cross country skiing where they have ordinances against that, any great pond that's open to the public for open water fishing, you can ice fish and you can have a fire on the ice. Ethically, maybe after you're done with the fire, you can bring whatever's left of the little pieces of wood and make sure it's out and put them on the shore. But you are absolutely doing no harm letting that melt into the ice and sink to the bottom to become fish structure. It's just detritus like leaves and branches that find their way into the water. Is it safe? Absolutely. Heat rises. Thermodynamics of heat, it absolutely rises. You'll get a little bit of puddling around the ice, around the fire. But it's not going to create this huge hole that's going to open up in the water and you're going to fall through. That's what a lot of people think. What I like to do is I take a trash can, steel, one of those tiny little metal trash cans with a steel lid. I put all my fire making materials in it. I put it in the sled, bring it out on the ice. I take the lid, I build my fire on it, and I slowly take out the dry wood that I brought in the trash can. And then the trash can can serve the same purpose when you're done. You can put the pieces that aren't burned back in it. And the neat thing about the metal trash can lid is if it starts to melt that little bit of water underneath it, you can just slide it around and move it. So you don't melt too much ice, but it's never going to melt completely to go through anyways, because of the nature of heat and it rises. So the fires are the best, especially with young folks and families, place to meet up and to keep warm, and gives you something to do while you're waiting for your flags to pop. Other gear to consider, well, we've already been over the power augers. These are a little more expensive. So once you know that ice fishing is going to be your jam, you might want to invest in that. But a $50 or $60 hand auger is the way to go when you're just starting. A fish finder is really good when you really get into it, because now it puts you where the fish are. It doesn't help you catch the fish all the time. We call it a finder, not a catcher, but you can actually visibly see the fish there. And the ones they're making now, they're videos under the ice. You can literally see the fish swimming around. So it's neat to know, geez, I've got fish underneath me. Now I got to get them to strike my bait or my lure. But you're in the game. You'll drill a hole, put that sounder down into the water and turn the screen on and nothing's there. Then, okay, let's move. So if you really get into it and you're an avid ice angler, you're going to want to be in the game quicker. So that's a nice tool. And these can go from $100 to $300 or $400. Like anything, the sky's the limit. The more you want to pay, the more they do. But that's only if you really want to get into ice fishing. And a shelter is huge. If you want to extend the seasons to those windy or colder days, these are awesome. They have windows in them. You can set up all your tip ups and you can go sit in them, put your little propane heater in there, maybe have a little a little stove going to cook your food, and they can just make the day that much easier. And these aren't expensive. An average one's $100. You can get them more expensive, but it's like a tent on the ice for comfort. So things that you want to do if you really get into ice fishing. And I have some of those things. So essential live baits, we had that question. You'll see a lot of green in the back here. These were actually filmed in the warmer open water season, because these are the same baits you'd use for fishing in open water. So the big three are shiners, which are just small fish to catch larger fish. You can get them in a bait and tackle store, or you can go trap them yourself. There's not much to that. Each licensed angler is allowed one trap out in the water, and you just put some bread in it, dog food or cat food, come back every couple of days and check it, scoop the fish that you've caught in there. And typically there's going to be these golden native New England pond shiners. They're called golden shiners. There's a few other species, but these are the very common ones you'll find in ponds, anywhere from 1.5 inches to 4 or 5 inches. Put them in your bait container and go fishing with them. It's a way not to spend $6 a dozen on shiners. And as you get east, shiners can even be $8 or $9 a dozen. So just keep that in mind if you fish with fish. So, and then the other things are your typical worms or small little grubs like mealworms. They work good for, I'll show you when we get into the videos of how to catch the fish. They work good to tip onto your lures or to catch certain species right under with your, even with your tip ups, you'll put a worm on instead of a shiner. So those are your three main baits. And of course, lures. Obviously, I didn't talk about lures, but there's ice jigs that you would use. The Haley jigs, there's Swedish pimples, there's Castmasters, there's little ice flies, there's little tiny metal ice jigs that you would tip with little grubs to put in the water too, that work great. Sky's the limit. Just Google ice fishing lures and a whole bunch of them will come up, and they'll have all kinds of ratings. So very accessible. Amazon's your friend there, but any small bait and tackle shop or even the larger sporting goods stores are going to have them throughout the winter. So these are the two, these are the most important things you're going to need if you're ice fishing. You're going to have a tip up or jig stick or combinations of. So those are your two most important pieces of gear. And let's get into how to set them up and operate them. So a tip up, which most people use when they're ice fishing, is just 3 small pieces of wood held together by 2 small little skinny bolts with wing nuts attached. And that's right here, these 3 little bars of wood, and then a spool to hold your ice fishing line. Ice fishing line is just a braided waxed line that can last 100 years. So that's a good thing about ice fishing line. Once you put it on, you're good to go for a long time. And then you would just put a little 2 or 3 foot leader of monofilament or fluorocarbon line to the end of your ice fishing line. Put a hook on that. And we're going to show you the setup in the video coming up here. So the spool, a length of spring steel here, and a trip mechanism between here and here is your trip mechanism. This has a little tab on it that sends a metal rod this way that kicks the flag up if a fish bites. So we're going to watch a video of that right here.
My name is Jim Lagacy. I work for Mass Wildlife and coordinate the angler education program. And today we're going to set a tip up. Very basic operation here. There's just a couple critical steps you need to know to put the bait in the right location and to make sure you can actually catch fish. So the first thing we do, here's your standard tip up right here. There's nothing much to it. Three bars of wood, a little spool, a trip mechanism, and a little spring steel as a flag. So we're going to open that up to start with, and then secure the set screws down so it's formed into a cross, and then take the flag out just like that. And the first thing we do, and the most critical thing in the entire procedure, is we have to sound the hole. And sounding the hole is just figuring out the depth at each individual hole when you're ice fishing. So nothing to it. You use what we call a sounder, surprisingly. And we're just going to put that on your hook and drop that down in the water column slowly. So there's all different kinds of sounders. Some of them have little springs on them. This one just has a little clip. You clip right onto the hook like that. And we're just going to drop it right down into the water column. Just like that. And we're just going to let it slowly cascade down so it won't fall off that hook. We're in fairly deep water here. I think we're just about on the bottom now. Okay, so now we're on the bottom. And we know that because we can feel that sounder, that little 2-ounce sounder, just literally thudding on the bottom. So then we're going to put our depth. You can use an ice bobber or just a button you can put on it in the old craft store. You can grab these buttons and slide them on your ice fishing line. And you're just going to slide that down to the top of the water column like that. So you've got a straight line down to your sounder. Then you're going to pick it up and slide that button 2 feet-ish toward the sounder or toward the bottom. And what that's going to do, that simple operation, is just going to keep your bait off the bottom and not hiding on the bottom in the weeds and in the rocks. And then after that, you're just going to bring the entire setup right back up onto your spool. And the average tip up is probably, $12 to $15, that kind of thing. And there's really elaborate ones you can buy, but these are the really cheap ones. And then you're just going to take the sounder off away from the hole, so you don't drop it down the hole. And then we need a shiner. Shiners, you can get them at bait and tackle shops, and these are golden shiners, typical New England pond shiners. And what I like to do with the shiner is put it on the hook under the dorsal fin above the spine. So kind of like where the dark skin meets the lighter skin. And it's wiggling around really good. The other way you can do it is by right under the lips, through the lips, I should say, but I don't like the way they swim, and they breathe by opening and closing their mouth with their gills. So it kind of cripples them a little bit, and they may die quicker. And you also have a little split shot weight, which gets that light shiner down into the water column. So then you just put it right back down in the water column, slowly. It's going to probably drop slow anyway, unless that split shot's a little heavier. But I like to use just a little light one, so that shiner swims more or less naturally. You're just going to let that go until the button is right on top of the spool. And we're probably fishing in at least a good 20 feet of water here, so it's going to take a little time. And this operation changes with each hole. I mean, you could be in 5 feet of water or 50 feet of water. That's why finding the bottom is critical, and setting your depth button is critical. And there we go. It's right on the top now. Now you just have to set the flag. And that's your trigger mechanism right there. You're just going to bring the flag down and put it on the open side of that trigger mechanism, just like that. So you want to put it on the open side, so if the fish bite, it triggers that flag to go off. So we'll do that. And then there's considerations for the wind. So the wind today is kind of blowing out of the north, northwest, more of a north right now. So you want to set it so that the wind doesn't knock it off the trigger. If you were to set it like that, the wind might blow it right off. So we want to kind of face it toward the wind, drop it down in the water column slowly, making sure the button is visible, and you've just set a tip up.
That's all there is to it, right? If you've never done it, you might be scratching your heads like, I don't get, the button thing. And so we'll just kind of walk through it quick here. So again, you drill your hole and you skim it out. You open your tip up and pull the flag up, so it's all open. There's these little set screws here. You firm them down, so you have a little cross, and that just so it doesn't, that holds that spool right up near the hole. And then you attach your sounding weight to your hook, literally to the hook, and cascade it down until it thuds on the bottom. And then this little button, and you can see it's just a button that you'd have on your shirt or your pants. You put it on that ice fishing line when you set up your rig. Unfortunately, you got to set up your own rig unless you can buy some that have. Most of the time I bought them, the line isn't on there. So you have to put the line on, then put the button, and then attach the leader with the hook. Zillion YouTubes on how to set up a tip up. But you can find them in flea markets and used on Craigslist all the time that are already all set up for you. So the button, you want to get it right to the top of the water column and then just move it toward the bottom or toward your sounder. So when you're setting it, that takes a couple feet out of it. And that's I know it sounds weird, you're moving it toward, but by moving it toward, you're taking a couple feet away so that when you put your bait down and you see that button right on your spool, the fish is swimming above the bottom and not right on the bottom. So that's that simple procedure. Once you do it a couple times, it's like, yeah, I get it. It's not a big deal. And then once you've set that, you bring everything right back up, just reel it right back on the spool, take the sounder off and put your bait on. And then cascade the bait back down into the hole, and that with that little weight that you put on. And I like to put that little split shot right where the ice fishing line meets your monofilament or your fluorocarbon leader, your little 2 or 3 foot leader. And that's just ends up being just above where the fish is. And it gets that fish to swim down deeper in the water, gets it down at that depth, because you may be fishing 30 or 40 feet of water, if you're fishing 5 feet, you really don't even need to worry about it. You're just right under the ice. And then you set you set the flag. Oh no, that's okay. Then you just set the flag and you set it right on the outside of the trip mechanism, not in here, just on the outside. And every trip mechanism might be a little different, but before you go out, just play with it a little so you can see how that spool, when that spool turns, it trips. it's down here. You'll see it here, but it's going to trip a little trigger that's going to set this flag off by moving this bar over. Pretty intuitive once you have it in hand and see it.
A super
Laura, do you
quick,
have a question?
yes, clarifying question from a couple folks in the audience.
Yep.
Behind the dorsal fin or in front for the shiners?
So I would say in front of it, but underneath it is more important. So right where the dorsal fin starts, just kind of underneath it, but not right where that dark skin meets the light skin. That's high enough. That's under the fin, but not to the spine. If you nick the spine, obviously you're crippling them and the fish can't really swim. You want the fish just to be down there swimming naturally, enticing a fish to bite. So that's the whole idea. So yeah, just right in front and underneath it, or just even just right underneath it. You don't, it's kind of nuanced. You don't have to get too worried about that.
And then someone wants to know, are you using an octopus circle?
I'm using just a regular circle hook. We've gone to that in our program. Try and get an inline regular circle hook. And if you're just trying to catch whatever bites, you're looking in the number 4 to number 6 size. Octopus circle hooks are decent. They're just even bigger. They have a bigger gap. We just like a standard circle hook. But a circle hook in general, whether it's an octopus or a standard one, is the way to go because the fish pretty much set the hook themselves, as we'll see in this video right here. Any more questions, Laura?
Nope, we're all caught up with anything that there were a few previously that were some clarifying questions that were a little more specific. So I think we'll save those for the end because we're already a little past 8.
I know we're getting close to the end though, I promise folks. So this is how to catch a fish. All right. So the best part of ice fishing is when this happens. The flag goes up, you come running over. Newbies, people that have never ice fished before, love this because the flag is up indicating possibly there's a fish on. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up to the hole. You're not going to be too eager. You're going to slide up, skate up. However you want to get to the hole, you're going to come in and see if the spool is turning. And indeed, the spool is turning on this one. That's your second indication that you have a fish on. This is your first when this goes up. And if the spool is turning, there's a fish taking your line out. So you want to be very careful. They're some fish are very touchy about how they what they feel on the other end of the line. So you want to pull this up slowly, lay it down on the ice. Now your indicator button's also gone. Another great sign that you have a fish at least there biting. So then you want to pick up the line with your hand like this, and you want to physically feel if there's a fish on. And I'm pulling it in like this. I can feel a little tugging back. Then you want to just give a little tug up. We're using circle hooks, so they pretty much set themselves. So then you just want to hand over hand fight the fish back in, and you want to kind of put the line up on the side like this, so it isn't all like balled up right at the hole, making a big mess. And if you have a buddy, they can actually be taking that in while you're fighting the fish. Then you just bring the fish right up through the hole like that. In this case, it's a nice chain pickerel. One of your classics in the winter. You want to grip them really good like this. That, and we have a circle hook on this. So usually they're just caught in the upper lower jaw. Really easy. And they have to be 15 inches in mass to keep. This one's right in that ballpark, but we're going to set this young fish free today. And the best way to do this is to put it right down the hole, head first. Don't put it tail first and struggle. You just put it right down the hole head first and free it up. And you've just caught a fish through the ice. And that's all there is, folks. It's so simple. Flag goes up, you come running over. You can give it time. You can walk over. If you see that spool moving, that means, and sometimes it's very subtle, the fish is taking it out. Sometimes if you set the tip up wrong, the wind will trigger the flag and you'll go over and you'll see the button, your indicator button, and the spool's not turning. Then you just reset the flag and try and work it so the wind isn't going to trigger it. But if you see that spool turning, sometimes it's turning really fast. That fish is just swimming off with your bait. Or you see that indicator button gone, just pull it out gently, take up the line. You'll see the fish fighting. And we kind of staged that a little bit. We knew we had a fish there and it was a smaller fish, so we didn't need to give a really big tug. But if it's a really fighting fish, you'll want to give a good tug to really jam that circle hook in the fish's upper or lower jaw. Generally, they set them themselves just by running. That's the beauty of circle hooks, just by taking that long swim with your bait. But sometimes a little extra setting is a good thing. So the other technique is a jig stick. So what I like to do is set my 4 tip ups and then cut a bunch of holes and do a little jigging, as this young lady's doing right here with a little mini fishing rod. And what I put on it is I put a little lure, There's so many different ice lures we talked about. And then I put a little grub, little mousy grub or a little mealworm on that, send it right down to the bottom of the water column. And then just like you would your tip up, because the fish are more or less going to be on the bottom early to midwinter when that warmer water's on the bottom. And then when the oxygen starts to kind of decomposition occurs and oxygen starts to wane on the bottom, the fish are going to come up higher in the water column. Or they go searching for something to eat, they'll move around. But you start on the bottom, turn the handle a little off the bottom and just jig. The jigging method is just bringing the rod up and down slowly or just very subtle. And if there's fish there within 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to know. You're going to get that strike. You're going to be jigging. You're going to feel the fish pull back. And sometimes it's really subtle if they're smaller fish. Sometimes it's a really big wow. A bigger bass, a pickerel, a big panfish, a trout really takes your arms right down. It's really neat. And then you just fight the fish in, set the hook and fight it in. So just going through the techniques, jigging can be as effective as a jig stick. If you find the fish, you can catch a ton of fish in one hole. Generally, finding the fish is the trick. Once you find them, sometimes there's 50 to 100 fish all gathered around the hole. Fish are schooling critters. They like to school up and stay together. And some anglers prefer just the jig stick. So it's minimalist ice fishing. You take a jig stick, your auger, maybe a little backpack with some warm refreshments, obviously your fishing license, and you just head out. Great thing to do for a couple, 3 hours in the afternoon and the morning, and you're not setting everything up and making a big day of it. So that's the minimalist way. You can catch a lot of fish that way too, with just a jig stick. We talked about they'd be very effective by themselves, the lures, or just by itself with the live bait, like you would in open water times. You just put the live bait right to the bottom. I like to do a combination, an ice jig with a little bit of natural live bait. Drop it to the bottom and start working your way up. Reel it up a little bit and start doing the little jig. If you don't get anything there, reel it up a little more and work the column up from the bottom up. If you don't get anything after, I even say like 5 minutes, I move on. So I'll set my 4 tip ups and then I'll drill like 10 holes in a long line trying to find the fish. And I'll take my jig stick and just work each hole like 5 minutes. If I find the fish, I'll stay right in that one hole, because sometimes you catch one fish, you can catch 20 out of the same hole. Because again, they're schooling. It's easier to find them than waiting for them to find you. And when you feel that bite, sometimes it's real subtle. You'll just see the tip of the rod move a little, or you'll see your line start to go out. You just give a little, you don't jerk it up really fast. You just give a little up. And then you'll feel it fighting. You'll know you hook the fish and then you fight it up just like you would in the regular open water season. A few tips for success. We're wrapping it up now, folks. I apologize for going a couple minutes long. A few tips for success. The main tip I would give you is to go to our website. Just Google Mass Wildlife. It's going to be the first one that comes up. On the front page, there's 4 big tabs. And one of them is the fishing tab. Hit the fishing tab. Once you're in the fishing pages, scroll down and go to the Go Fish Mass app. You open that up and it's going to be this right here. It's going to show Massachusetts with all these purple dots, and these purple dots are places to go fishing. So you just, if you want to, say you want to head to the Berkshires this weekend, you'd zoom over to the Berkshires, click one of the dots. Say you're going to Pittsfield, click on Anoda or Pontusic, click on those, and our pond maps come up, and it'll show you where the depth is in the water. It shows you what's in the water. There's a whole map that shows you what was stocked, what's in that water body, the access points, directions to get there. And the really cool thing about this is if you're on one of the more modern water bodies that we've mapped out, there's over 100 of them in the state. You can load it up on your phone and you can walk right on the water and it'll show you where you are on that water. Your dot will be, because your GPS in your phone will show you where you are on the pond. You can use it boat fishing too. It'll show you exactly. So it's handy if you want to fish deep water for certain species or shallow water for other species. You know where you are in that pond in relation to the depth. So that's probably the biggest tip I can give you. Check that map out before you go out. Identify a couple water bodies, get all the information about those water bodies. Our website has tons more information about fishing, including this video. This video will be on our website, or one very similar to it, so you can watch these videos over and over. But the Go Fish Mass app is the best thing to key up on certain water bodies. So a couple veteran tips: know where your fish live in the winter. We talked about it already. Start on the bottom. Warmest water's on the bottom. And if you don't find them there, as winter progresses, you can get close to where the streams come in or go out. Just don't get right on top of them, because you're likely to have thinner ice in those areas. but they're looking for bait coming in or bait going out, smaller fish to eat. They're looking for a little more oxygen. So as you go through the winter, oxygen wanes on the bottom, and it goes more toward the middle of the water column and where water's coming in and going out. Same old fish that you catch during the open water season. You'll catch all the same species through the ice. That's the beauty of it. Don't drill your holes too close. That's a huge tip. A lot of people say, oh, let's keep our holes 5 or 10 feet apart, then we don't have to walk. Well, what happens if a fish bites and runs right through 2 or 3 of your other holes and tangles up all that line? Then you've got 2 or 3 tip-ups all tangled up. So I keep them 30 or 40 feet apart. Very less likely that a running fish is going to get tangled in one of your other lines if you keep them apart. Think small in terms of your bait. I know it's tempting to buy big baits or to trap big baits because big baits catch big fish, right? Well, it's true they do, but they also, you're sitting all day waiting for that one big fish to come. Whereas if you use medium and small baits, you'll catch big fish, small fish, medium fish, all kinds of fish. And if you're just starting, that's more important than I think targeting a big fish. Keep the bait handy. Keep that bait bucket, if you're using shiners or if you're using worms, right next to you, right in your pocket. Because if you're checking your tip-ups, a fish runs, takes your bait, you'll have the bait right there ready to reload. And then move them. If you're not catching any fish, it's easier to find the fish if you don't have a fish finder. So just start moving your tip-ups to a different location, or jig until you find the fish, then move the tip-ups around those locations. It is an action sport in a way, a pastime. You don't have to just be lazy. Sometimes I get tired and lazy. I just set my tip-ups. Then after 3 hours of not getting one flag, when I could have been moving them around and looking for them, would have been a little more efficient on those days when I should have been more efficient. But those are some veteran tips. And again, we're going to send you links to a lot of this information so you can view it multiple times. And our website has a lot of good ice fishing information. So I am sorry I went a little long. I get really pumped about this topic and I get a lot of enthusiasm for it. So I apologize there.
No, thank you so much, Jim. We really appreciate it. Do you have time for some questions?
Oh, absolutely.
Fabulous.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. So folks, I just want to remind everyone that if you're not able to stay while Jim answers some questions, that this video will be posted on the Framingham Public Library YouTube channel. So visit us at youtube.com/Framingham Public Library. But we do hope you're able to stay with us and hear a few additional questions. I'm going to scoot back just a little bit. We had somebody saying they're headed to Maine with a family. They're hoping to land a pike. Any suggestions for bait and technique for that?
Yeah, so we talked about big baits, right? So with pike, you want bigger baits. Pike it's all about energy in, energy out, energy in, energy out. And the larger the fish get, the more the size, the bigger the size they're looking for the meal. So you'll want a bigger bait. And you can buy those in any bait and tackle shop. They'll have small shiners, medium shiners, large shiners. The large shiners are 6 or 8 inches long. And you'll find shallow water. Pike like shallower water, and they like to be near moving water too. So inlet coming into a lake or an outlet going out again, make sure the ice is thick and safe. But those are areas that you want to target because that shallow water is going to have a lot of weeds, and pike like to lie in the weeds and wait. So avoid the real deep water, find shallower water, bigger baits, and set all of your tip-ups. In Maine, it might only be 2 per person. So just be mindful, like I said, of those regulations. It's different per state. But that might be New Hampshire I'm thinking of. I forget. Maine might actually be 5 or 6. So just know that going in.
We've got another bait question. Are there specific types to use for species that you aim to catch, or are shiners the most common?
Most common. Golden shiners or your New England pond shiners are the most prolific, ubiquitous shiner you're going to find out there. It's the one you'll find in most bait and tackle shops too. If you trap them yourself, just know we do have some regulations against using certain species of fish. So like if you caught a trout or a rare and endangered, certain species of fish in your shiner trap, you can't use that. There's a very short list of species that you can use: pumpkin seeds, yellow perch, golden shiners, fall fish. They're very easy to identify. We have all those IDs are up on our website. So there's a short list of the ones you can use, but 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a golden shiner in your shiner trap if you trap them yourself or if you buy them in the store.
We've got someone wondering if they should bring their 13-year-old to an ice fishing tournament.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep, that's a perfect age. That's when I started my son, maybe a little younger than that, but that's, usually the entry fees are inexpensive. Some of them will even have gear you can borrow. I know we sponsor a couple. We let them borrow some of our gear. Some of our instructors will be there to help. So yeah, or just purchase a couple of tip ups, or if you have them, that's a wonderful activity to do. You can win some great prizes and have some great fun.
Someone wondering if we should be concerned about the bait bucket freezing.
Only on those extreme days. The bait buckets have insulating layers. It's bucket on the outside, but it has a foam layer wrapped around. So only on those extreme days, you'll have to just knock the little thin layer of ice off the top. It's a rare occurrence. Though a day like today, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
In terms of safety on the ice, what about 2 feet of snow on the ice? Is that safe, or is there extra weight because of the snow?
There's extra weight, obviously. But if you've got that 6 inches, we always say 6 inches plus, obviously the physics of it shows 4 inches plus is going to be safe. But no, I mean, what snow does generally is it makes a nuisance out of itself, and it makes it harder to move around. It's nice if there's just a couple inches, because then you don't need those cleats, you don't need the skates, you can just walk very comfortably. But when you get a foot or 2 feet of ice, 2 feet of snow on top, then you're trudging through. It's nice to have snowshoes in that instance. I have a pair of snowshoes I wear if the snowpack gets really deep. But no, there's no safety concerns at all. You will find more slush at your holes. You'll drill out those holes, and because the water does come up through, you gain more slush around the holes. But no, there's no real safety concerns.
All right, that's all the questions we have in the chat. I'm gonna give just a quick second for anybody else who wants to type in one final question. And while you've got your typing fingers ready, Jim, what should we take away? The one thing that you want us to remember about this presentation?
I'll give you 2. First of all, be safe. Don't go out. Ice fishing, the number one thing is what I said when I opened it, Laura, is just have fun. Ice fishing is another wintertime activity, best done in groups and family groups and friends, but make sure you're safe out there. I know it's an overused word, but you don't want to go through the ice. So make sure you know how to check it. Make sure it's at least that 5 or 6 inches. Check it multiple times. And if you're safe, it is just a blast being out on the ice, watching your flags go up and catching fish through the ice. So have fun and be safe.
Fabulous. Well, we've got everybody in the comments saying thank you so much. They had a great time. They learned a ton from you. I'm going to pop in our chat one more time the program evaluation form. We would really love to hear from you, what you thought, and if you have any suggestions for other programs like this. And as Jim mentioned a couple times, we will be sending a follow-up email with all of these links that he recommends. So just keep an eye on your inbox. If for some reason it doesn't pop up, check your spam or your promotions. And if it still doesn't pop up, let us know at the library and we'll get it to you. And of course, the video will be up online as well. So check those out and send anybody. 4-year-old Logan says hi. got a little hello in the chat there. So excellent. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you everyone for attending, and Mina too, behind the scenes. We can't do it without you folks, and we can't do it if people don't show up. So appreciate it. Don't be a stranger. And in the link, I'll put my email too, and you can ask questions down the road if you have other ones. And hopefully, Laura, we do an open water one and we get out and fish.
Yes, sounds great.